It's the dead, and they're the ones. Boop, 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 boop. You know, it's funny. I did actually rewatch Return of the Living Dead recently because my partner hadn't seen it before, and it's the spooky season. I gotta show her Return of the Living Dead. I won't comment too much about it, but I will grab it out just in case. Because, of course, this is part 2 of... Oh my god, look at me go. My god, I am totally prepared. This is part 2 of a calm and relaxed talk about the Romero Dead films. In the first part, which I didn't realise I was going to make it into a calm and relaxed talk until I started editing it, because I'd just done the Saw videos, I'm like, well, I could do as a calm and relaxed talk, because the calm and relaxed talk, I know I keep saying it, is a video series where I review films that are action or horror series. So, yeah, in the first part I talked about the first 6 of Romero's films, technically the only of the zombie films that he ever did, but he of course did produce the remake for Night of the Living Dead, the 1990s version, which I have here. I have the Umbrella release, which I believe comes from a transfer from Severin, because some of the special features are credited to Severin, which I didn't know about. So, yeah, it's good. It has an audio commentary of Tom Savini, who was the director of this feature. It also comes with a director interview with him as well. Return to the Living Dead interview with special effects makeup supervisors John Vulich and Everett Burrell, and interview with lead actress Patricia Tallman. I watched the interview with her and with Savini. Overall, it's a fine release. It's the Umbrella release. Again, I imagine if you're in the US, get the Severin release if it's still available. I don't even know if that Night of the Living Dead Savini one is still available, but it's worth noting. I don't think I'm going to talk much about it, but there is Return of the Living Dead, the Dan O'Bannon film, Scream Factory release. Excellent release of the film. The Dawn of the Dead remake. This is the standard Blu-ray that was released yonkers ago, but it is the extended, or at least the uncut, exclusive cut. Uncut version? It's the exclusive director's cut. I don't know what the contrast is in terms of runtime. This is 149 minutes, an hour and 49 minutes. I think it's like a minute or two longer, probably the nudity, if we're going to be honest, just because for home media release, why not release it with the titties? When in a theatre, you can remove the titties and get more people in the seats. People in the seats, even though it doesn't actually say nudity on the tagline there. This is all regions, but it is a BD25, so it's pretty lackluster and no special features. I haven't gotten the Scream Factory 4K release. That's why I'm bringing it up. And as referenced in the previous video, I have this release for Day of the Dead, which is the Steve Miner remake. And we're going to go through all 3 of these films. I might touch on Return of the Living Dead, if I feel like it. I don't need to. It's a classic. I think... I'll briefly start with that, because I want to talk about, to start off with, just the remake sequels and stuff that happened. So Return of the Living Dead was the sequel to Night of the Living Dead, but not as a sequel, as a in-universe thing. So of course, the whole bit is that in the universe, Night of the Living Dead happened, but it was a movie based on real events. And so this is the sequel to the real events, where they've got the zombies in these canisters, and one of them 2 people accidentally unleash a gas, which then infects them and infects the surrounding area, and lo and behold, the zombie uprising. It's very 80s, it's very punk, it doesn't have the kind of commentary or biting satire that Romero has, but it also is just a very funny movie anyway. Like, O'Bannon does a great job with just doing everything. The effects work are fantastic. Some of the best zombie effects you'll ever see, outside of, I wouldn't say the best gore effects, but definitely the best zombie effects, because sometimes you think of zombie makeup over the gore, that them ripping someone to pieces and whatever. So Day of the Dead, the original, still triumphs in terms of gore effects. But in terms of zombie effects, Return of the Living Dead is just fantastic. The 4K transfer is amazing. It's a wonderful film to watch. It's very punk. It's very just chaos, just pure chaos. But I think it still lands within the same tongue, the same kind of, I'd say nihilistic, pessimistic kind of outtake that Night of the Living Dead has, that Dawn of the Dead has. So it still works in that format. of course, there are still other films that are direct sequels, like the Zombie Flesh Eaters by Lucio Fulci, otherwise known as Zombie and whatnot, and that has its own series with Zombie 2 and Zombie 3, aka, you've got Zombie Flesh Eaters, Zombie Cannibal something, and Zombie this. There's a lot of different zombie with just an I, no E, spin-offs. I've only ever seen Zombie Flesh Eaters, and I didn't care much for it at the time, but it's more of a... I just didn't understand exactly what I was meant to be watching, because it's very different to both the Romero films and the American films, because it's Italian. It's spaghetti, as they phrase it, like with the spaghetti westerns. It's a spaghetti zombie film where it's a different style of filmmaking. It's a different style of effects. The effects work are tremendous. That's probably another one that's up there as... It definitely is another one that's up there as the best zombie effects you'll ever see. The thing is, you gotta wait till like the last half an hour for the zombies to kind of uprise, because most of it is spent on a boat going to the island. And then when they're on the island, it's like, oh, it's like we're on an island. But then there might be zombies and there might not be. There is the occasional zombie. The occasional kills. I mean, there is still, even earlier in the film, you get sharks fighting zombies on the water. It's unique, I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have, but I plan to inevitably rewatch it and just reevaluate it, because I wasn't expecting the movie I got. I was hoping for something kind of different, and I didn't like what I got. So that's on me. So it's worth noting that with every Romero zombie film and everything that's come since then in terms of from his original work, there's always something about each work that's like, this is something unique of its own, with its own take, but also kind of like I'd say the common theme with all of these zombie films, all these Romero ones, is they all do something different. They've all done different styles or different narratives or different ways to portray zombies, or just different kind of zombies. Like even the Dawn of the Dead remake, you've got the zombie baby. The Day of the Dead remake, you've got these like Spider-Man like zombies that can run up walls and shit. It is insane the amount of stuff that they can do. And of course the idea is to not exactly one-up itself, but the smarter Romero ones are one-upping themselves in terms of use of commentary and character. Whereas the remakes are more one-upping themselves in terms of what can we do better than the original, or at least what can we do that's vastly different to what's come prior, especially once you get to Day of the Dead being like, well, Dawn of the Dead had fast zombies, let's do really fast zombies. Wow, our budget can totally make up for that. So anyway, in terms of spin-offs and sequels and stuff, they're good. Again, you got to be in the right boat for it. Return of the Living Dead is a great American version of a spin-off, but the Italians, all the Italian ones are insane. If you like that style, they are fantastic. If you don't like one of them, you probably won't like any of them. I think it's pretty easy to put it in that boat. It's like, if you don't like giallo, the Italian slasher films, you won't like the other Italian slasher films, most likely. Unless you go for the very early ones that are like more like Psycho or more like murder mysteries. It depends. Is it a slasher, murder mystery? They're all slashers and murder mysteries, but So let's talk about the actual movies we got here. So I'll start off with Night of the Living Dead, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's one of those films that would have really benefited from, I'm not going to say actually being good. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It's one of those films that would have benefited if its budget was better, if they weren't restrained, because it is a almost exact remake of the original. It's based on the exact same script and everything. Romero even had, a producing credit and whatnot, and was like, this is what you should do, whatever. And he was there for day 1 of filming, but he wasn't there till the very end of filming after that. And Savini said that was a real problem, because not just was he able to, be able to figure out how to make things go quicker and cheaper and whatever, but the producers of the film were the ones that were putting a stranglehold over him the whole time. So as much as the film is 90% a remake, the main changes being it's in color, you've got different blood and gore effects because it's updated, you can actually show zombies that look like zombies, not like what they did in the original, which was mostly a low budget feat, but also because the zombies hadn't been done that way before and technically were original. Unless you count the voodoo stuff. So, a film like White Zombie does exist. Nevertheless, with Savini's film, I still think it's good, Some people prefer it to the original, which is fine. I think the original achieves better because of its use of cinematography, its use of characters. Its low budget nature kind of benefits, like it's an all rounder, except for a bit of, like I said in the previous one, a bit of a weakness in the middle where not really much happens when they're just boarding up the house. This one changes that, where when they're boarding up the house, they're all doing it, they're all working together, but then they're all still arguing and stuff. Barbara, on the other hand, is the main plot. She's the main one who changes, and she's the main benefit of the film. Savini even said in the interview that he saw Aliens and was like, Barbara should be like Sigourney Weaver in that film, where she's weak and feeble at the start. Not exactly like Sigourney Weaver, but like she's weak and feeble at the start because of this trauma. Her brother's just been murdered. These zombies, oh, I don't know, it's crazy, it's pandemonium. But then she changes, you know? She has a change of character, she grows from it, and she becomes this action badass, which is great. There is a pivotal scene which would have made it more interesting because they show an image of the mother on the gravestone, and her mother was meant to come back in the form of a zombie, or at least a zombie was meant to wear like a kind of hat that she wore, and it was meant to be this really interesting thing. But then because when they shot it, she fell down and she got a concussion, and they were like, the producer's like, well, we can't have her in the film because she might sue us. So that became a problem. It's one of those things where the film, I'm not going to spoil the ending just in case you're interested in watching it, but it's a film that you really got to realize is buckled down because of the budget, because of the producers saying everything that Savini wanted to do that sound really original, sound really crazy. Apparently in the commentary, he's really elaborate about, we would have done this, we would have done that. In the interview, it's like 20 minutes long of him saying, here are all the storyboards, we were going to do this, we're going to do that. Visually, it was going to be a much more interesting film because it feels very flat in how it's filmed. The effects work feels very lacking, like all the shots of like brains getting blown out with bullets and stuff, like all the gunshots and stuff were cut out of the movie because the producers just cut it all out. It's like, I don't think they cut it out because they'd filmed it, I think it was a mixture, like they cut a lot of stuff out of the movie after they'd filmed it, and they cut a lot of stuff before they filmed it to save on time and budget, because even Romero said that it was a film that was a 6-week shoot, but they only had the budget for a 4-week shoot. So it's disappointing. If, again, had it been given the liberty to do what they wanted to do, it would have been such a fantastic film. But just everything was against it, and that was a huge problem for it. And it's disappointing, because I still like it. I think it's fine. I don't mind them having remade the original, but again, it's one of those that it would have benefited a lot more if they were able to do all the changes that they wanted to from the original. The main one that they stuck with, changing Barbara, worked flawlessly, and even changing the ending, but again, even the end credits didn't have it was replicating the original film, where even Savini said they had this whole thing in mind, but when they got around to shooting it, the producers were like, we don't have the time, we don't have the money, you can't do it. So yeah, it's worth noting that that's really the only thing I really want to say about the film. It's a film that could have been amazing, even if people hated it for being, it's too much different to the original, whatever. But it's just one of those things where it could have been amazing if the people who had the money used it and actually gave them the time to do this thing. So that's where I feel like the original benefits a lot more. It was very cheap. That was the benefit of a lot of Romero's films. They were very cheap movies, very easy to make because of that. They didn't have restrictions outside of like Land of the Dead. So it's worth noting. But as an overall, it's still got some good gore effects. The characters are interesting. There's got some great performances in it. I'll give them that. Like, the girl who plays Barbara is fantastic. The guy, was it Tony Todd, who plays Ben? He's great. Like, some of the characters are really good. Some of the zombies look great. It's just, again, it feels like it's lacking from the get-go. But that's just that's the end result. It is what it is. You can't change what had happened. It wasn't one of those, they left so much on the cutting room floor. It was simply, I mean, there was still stuff left on the cutting room floor, but there was just a lot of stuff they weren't allowed to shoot because they didn't have the money for it. So yeah, again, 3 out of 5. Better than a standard film, but not as good as the original, and I don't think, it never will be. For some people, they prefer it, and that's perfectly fine. It definitely has better character than the original film, a lot more depth than the original film. It doesn't have the biting commentary that the original film is because it doesn't hammer home the ending very well, but at the same time, it still has a similar enough message. Still, it is what it is. But now we'll talk about Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead, this is the third time I've watched this. I hadn't seen None of the Living Dead before, but this was the third time I'm watching Dawn, because we watched it back on TV a couple of years back as a family. Hoy families. And I've got the Blu-ray, and I've watched the Blu-ray twice now. I watched it back in, I think, 2019, maybe 2020, and again now. I've given it 3.5 stars, which for me is like 2.5 is like, again, it's out of 5, is 2.5 is like, it's fine, I just don't like it as much as, like, it just feels standard. 3 is, it's a good film, has a bit more oomph to it. 3.5 is like, this is not just a good film, but worth watching because it has an extra twang to it, it has an extra fun factor, something unique about it. And in this case, as a remake, because this is what they all are, you got to compare it to the original, and the original is low budget. It's very character driven. For me, I watched the European cut, so it's not European, the Cannes cut, so it's a lot longer. Everything about the original I adore. Everything about the new one I like, except for mostly the color grading. I like the needle drops. I know that they're all puns for death and whatever, but I find it really funny. Especially because, like, the final song they use in it is currently like a meme on TikTok. Get Down with the Sickness, I think it is. And that's really funny to me. What did I write it? Get Down with the Sickness, yeah. It's just... I just love how it just cuts to that, and just complete havoc and chaos. The opening 10 minutes are spectacular. Most people agree that it is one of the best openings to a zombie film ever made, especially as a day one film. Which is noteworthy that all of these films are day one films except for Return of the Living Dead, because that's technically like 20, 30 years later, whatever. Dawn, night, and day are all day one scenarios. You know, with night being the countryside, we're limited to like one house with a couple of people and a lot of zombies for some goddamn reason. Dawn of the Dead is the city metropolis. Day of the Dead is the small town. So they're all different versions of the day one, and they all show different reactions. Of course, Dawn, you've probably seen it before, Zack Snyder's first directorial film. And it's stylish, it's slick, it's fast, it brings in the fast zombies, so it gives something new and edgier than the original. Basically, everything it does that's different, I think, benefits the film from the original. I still prefer how it's done in the original, but, like, again, the original is about the people. It's not about the zombies. The zombies are just there, you know? There's obviously the commentary on consumerism and, they must want to live here or whatever the crap, you know? Like, this reminds them of their old lives. And they have a moment like that in this one, of course. You kind of got to reference that, because it's like, why is there suddenly no zombies, and then at 9 a.m., bam, 100,000 zombies? What's that all about? Because it's just behavioral patterns. It's fine. But this film does benefit by giving you some different zombie effects, updated in terms of both practical and digital effects. It adapts the story differently, so you've got a different focus of characters. It does give you more characters, which is a bit of a lackluster element, because there's so many characters. I'm like... I forgot there's a pregnant woman in the film, of course, and I forgot she was Russian. I remember her having to turn into a zombie while she's pregnant, and she has a zombie baby, because that's a unique thing about the film. That was like, oh my god, zombie baby, it's never been done before. You know, there's elements like that that have a uniqueness to it. It also still plays with that, like, narrative punchline of what if they got onto a boat and sailed to an island to end the film. And even that is on its own quite fun and different, you know? It's a lot like Day of the Dead, but it's much more nihilistic, because it's like, oh yeah, they all just die, probably. The way they shoot it with the camcorder especially, it works really well. The opening 10 minutes, the last 10 minutes, the last 20 minutes are really great. Just escaping the place, the truck's going crazy, the guy chopping the girl in half by accident. Everything about it just keeps one-upping itself, and I like how they left it on the big blockbuster action set piece. Because that's what this film is. It's less of a horror film, more of a blockbuster action film. It's just that the enemies in this case are zombies, because, well, a major life event, history event, happened in America, and it's kind of hard to detail which people we should tag as the bad guys. And this film has been criticized for being, I'm pretty sure the term is Islamophobic, but if you kind of bipartisan that, and like, just because that's only in like the opening montage, which is so stupid why it starts with that. I'm like, why do you need to do that? But, you know, I guess get a reason to hate someone, or it's more or less the opening montage is to the credits montage examines how did this come to be? Potentially maybe this, maybe it was a terrorist, maybe it was drugs, maybe it was aliens, you know. It doesn't matter. It never matters, but you know, it's worth noting. But yeah, I hate the color grading. I hate how green it looks. It's really annoying. Obviously, it's a very Matrixy effect. Matrix Resolutions thing. The sequels, where they became very green, and I hate that so much. It looks terrible. Some of the color grading when they're outside looks fine. It looks washed out, but it works. It's like War of the Worlds, the Spielberg one. It works for what it is. That's a style I don't mind. It gets a bit too much when you get to like digital photography and shit, and especially when you get to something like Scream 4. I hate the cinematography in that film. Love the film, hate the cinematography. The color palette is atrocious. But yeah, it's just worth noting. Maybe, of course, if I got the Scream Factory 4K, they would clean it up a bit. But at the same time, it's color grading that's kind of like implemented in the cinematography of the original film, like from the original film print. I don't think this would have been a Blu-ray exclusive, like with The Matrix, how they changed it to look a bit greener in the DVD release to suit the sequels. Yeah, I know that historical fact to you, because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that original color gradings aren't like they are meant to be shown on the original DVDs and Blu-rays. Maybe Laserdiscs, but not the original DVDs and Blu-rays sometimes. It's just something worth noting. But yeah, so the characters are not very interesting in this film. There's a lot of them. A lot of people remember the guy from Modern Family being in this film as being like the sarcastic, misogynistic douchebag. And my brother came in and he's like, hey, where's that guy from Modern Family? I'm like, oh, he hasn't shown up yet. And I was like 45 minutes into the film. So it's like, yeah, it's probably too short for what it is. Like, it's a very fast-paced film, which benefits with this fast zombies and that kind of stuff. They're way too fast. Fuck that. That's an apocalypse I do not want to be a part of. If I got zombies chasing after me, I'm like, I'd rather just shoot myself. I'm not gonna deal with that crap. But yeah, so it's still a fun film. It's interesting to watch. It has some good action. It has some decent horror. The zombie effects are good. For me, it's mostly a letdown because it's mostly a letdown in the areas of the characters are not that interesting. The commentary, in contrast to Romero's, is like touched on briefly, but not really. It's more of the commentary becomes the external forces that could have led to this apocalypse, including the guy from the first one returning to say like, oh, when there's too many zombies and when there's too many people in hell, the dead will walk the earth. But like explain it as in like, oh, it's because you let gay marriage happen, and because this and that, and like you have sex before marriage, and you watch porn, and like all this like really basic Christian propaganda crap. Which, maybe it's meant to be sarcastic, it's meant to be like a ironic commentary, like, oh, of course, this is what they're going to think of, because it's the end of the end of times, and they're going to blame the Christians. They're going to, well, not the Christians, but, or maybe yes, the Christians, so more or less blaming the people that don't sustain to the Christian fundamental idea of doing exactly what the Bible says, despite how purposely vague it is. So, yeah. It's just a thing, so, yeah. It's still a good film, though. I obviously prefer the original, but it's a fun remake, and it's one I revisit every couple of years. I find it really funny when some people say that it's their favourite of Zack Snyder's films, or like not just their favourite, but his best, or his only good film. So when it trickles down to it's his only good film, that's when you're like, oh, someone doesn't like Justice League, or Man of Steel, or like any other film that he's made. I'm not swayed either way, But yeah, I think his films are fine. So, yeah, Dawn of the Dead's alright. I don't have much to say about it. I think I want to just kind of compare these to the original, and it's mostly just the lack of character that's interesting and propelled. A lot of it is, like, even the romance between two of the characters is, like, so minimal. It's one scene, and then he dies 20 minutes later, but he sacrifices himself. It's like, oh, well, glad we had this in here just because, like, it's almost like you're set up to doom them by, like, putting in this cliche. But again, James Gunn wrote the screenplay, and it's good. It's different enough from the original, whilst basically just repurposing the idea. What if people were stuck at a mall, a big shopping centre, but in a modern context. How would that suit with all the TVs, with the guy that's across the street? I like that whole story plot line. It gives Ving Rhames something to do. So yeah, it's good stuff, and the ending is quite unique, so I like it. But yeah, nothing astounding, but some good stuff, some unique stuff, some original stuff to write home about. Again, Fast Zombies, Zombie Baby, stuff like that. There's that one zombie that climbs throughout the garage. That was great. I love that part. I always forget that does that. And like they got the dog there, and then it's like, oh look, here's a zombie on the roof. I love it. But then we get to the bad one. Day of the Dead from 2008. It says 2007 as copyright on the Blu-ray, but I guess it was just released in 2008. This is not a great film. It's directed by Steve Miner, who is known for the first House film and Friday the 13th Part 2. I think he did another Friday the 13th as well. I can't remember, but I like his style. But this film is the tricky one that I'll probably spend the majority of the time on, because in all reality, there's not much else to say. I'm not going to rank these three because they're very different to each other, both in terms of style and budget. Like, Dawn of the Dead had the budget that I think Night of the Living Dead should have had, but probably maybe half that, but because it didn't need explosions or special effects like that. I mean, it still has an explosion, but a practical one, not a digital effects one. But Day of the Dead is like, what if Night of the Living Dead had even less of a budget? Or at least that's what it feels like, because it is very, very messy. So Day of the Dead is nothing like the original. The obvious note here is that they basically just took the idea of the name, and Bub, in this case Bud, I think in this one, they've changed his name, so that's why I keep getting confused. Is it Bub? Is it Bud? Is it Bob? Too many three-letter names. But they take that character and the idea of the military and the scientist people, and then just make most of that all background stuff for, it's a town that has a flu and they all turn into zombies. The thing is, I don't mind the film. I know a lot of people hate it, and I can see why. If it didn't have the name Day of the Dead, it would be probably at least a little bit more regarded. But for me, it's more like a CW show. It's like that late 2000s cliche, badly written for teenagers kind of crap with the really obvious and atrocious dialogue. At one stage, there's a guy. This is actually Bud, I think. Is it Bob? Is it Bob? Who cares? That character is hanging out with our main character's mother, and she says, "Isn't my daughter hot?" She's dressed up in military gear, and she calls her daughter hot. And he's like, yeah, your daughter's super hot. And I'm like, who talks like that? Like, this isn't like the middle of the Midwest. This is fucking, well, say Milwaukee. But I don't know where the hell this was. They mentioned, I think it's like North Carolina or some shit. But still, it's like, why? Why is the dialogue so bad in this movie? I know Ving Rhames does return. The best thing about it is that he gets killed and becomes a zombie that has no legs, so he's just like climbing stuff. He rips out his own eyeball at one stage. It's kind of fun. Yeah, it's not a good film. That's the bare bones. The pros of the story, if you can get behind how cartoonish the zombies are, because they not just are able to turn into zombies, like, it's like a sleeper cell. Like, it's waiting for an activation and then bam, zombie. But not just zombie, immediately rotten flesh and everything. I kind of like that. I think it's really funny. Like, because it's meant to be a germ that's doing this. So realistically, it's like, yeah, sure, why not? Why don't they just turn into the ugliest monsters you can possibly imagine, and then they immediately start eating people? Like, they're not craving brains, they're just eating people. Like, there's no explanation for what they're doing. It's just that kind of rabid behavior. And it's fun to watch for that part. And then they start jumping on the walls and running really, like, inhumanly fast and stuff. Very cartoonish. If you can get behind that, you might enjoy part of the film. If you can't get behind that, then you won't like the film, because you won't like the effects, which are very cartoonish. There's a point where someone uses a Molotov and all the zombies that catch on fire, you see them in the flames. Again, it's all like CGI rendered, and their heads explode, and then they disintegrate. Like, they basically turn to dust. And I think that that's really funny. It's bad, but it's also like, it kind of works with how cartoonish the zombies are naturally. So it's like, realistically, not realistically, but like on a kind of realistic basis, I can get behind it. It's just the characters and the story and the dialogue that's kind of the weakest part. The dialogue is terrible. The characters are fine. There's nothing really to write home about. Ian McNeice is in it, and I've met him, and he's a really great guy. And it's like, it was just so funny to see him as a long-haired stoner radio DJ, and it's like, yeah, sure, he becomes a zombie. That's fun. There's a lot of those cliche characters. It starts off what feels like a Friday the 13th film, and then just isn't, because you expect zombies to come out and they don't, and it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, the basic plot is there's a military, this girl called Sarah, who you've probably seen the actress before. She, it's her old hometown, and she's just there at post to keep people from going in and to leave and whatever. And so she gets the permission to go in and check on her mother. She goes home, finds her brother trying to screw a girl, which is funny because he was trying to screw her earlier at the start of the film. But they were like, no, let's go to a better place, my home. My mum's sick in bed, it's all good. So they go upstairs, mum's sick, whatever. They go to the hospital with her. And a lot of that has the back and forth dialogue of, oh, why are you here? All this kind of bullshit. Like the kind of obvious, oh, the person who could have achieved a lot at home but decided to leave to pursue their own life, and everyone hates them because of it, because that's such a weird small town belief that's in a lot of American films. I don't get it. Leave them alone. Unless they've done something really, really messed up, which maybe she has, but they never explain it because they make it seem like there was an accident between her and her brother that involved the bike. I thought they meant a motorbike. It seems that they meant like a mountain bike, and something happened, and they never explain it. She literally says, long story, we won't bother talking about it. I'm like, but this is literally character depth. This is like important, and they just don't talk about it at all. And this is like well into the film by this stage. It's stupid. But yeah, so she's kind of critical of the characters that live there. They're critical of her, whatever, that kind of bullshit. They go to the hospital. By the 30-minute mark, everyone kind of stops. Like, there's a lot of people in the hospital. A lot of people still go into the hospital, and the people in the hospital turn into zombies. And you mostly see it from one person's point of view, where it's like the main character's brother, he's with his girlfriend, and her father's in hospital. And at one stage, he just stops, and you zoom into his eye, and you see all the stuff in the brain and how like it turns him. And then you zoom out, and he's like rotting skin, and he like tears his own face half off, and then jumps and like attacks the mother. And then you cut to the rest of the stuff. There's a doctor there and all this kind of stuff. It becomes escape from the hospital situation. Most of our characters get split up, and then they end up kind of converging. There's no real means to an end. It's basically just the main character gets out of the hospital after going through some bullshit, finds her brother at the radio station because he's been broadcasting the whole time, and then they leave to go elsewhere and try to leave town, but they can't because the blockade is now full of zombie blockades, because all the military people are turned into zombies. And so then they go through a back road that leads to the place at the start of the film where they will hide out, the military bunker. Not a military bunker, it's a medical bunker. They go downstairs and find out it's this whole secret laboratory, and I'm like, oh my god, this is Resident Evil 2002, what the hell? So it's very inspired by that crazy zombie stuff and all that. Very inspired. If you don't like the Resident Evil films, you won't like this especially. I like the Resident Evil films, so I think that's why I found some fun in this. But that still has some real good style in it, at least like those Paul W. Sanderson films. They have style. This Day of the Dead film does not. It's just chaos. And the last act is in this medical bunker where you discover that this was a plague, that they were trying to do a medical weapon that would neutralize a person for 64 hours, and then it turns out that it actually turns you into a goddamn zombie, and then a guy becomes a super zombie because he's a really smart person, and lo and behold, he turns into a zombie. So it means that he's like really smart whilst also being a zombie. So he commands other zombies, he's able to jump around and grab people from the roof. It's really funny. Yeah, it's basically just that until they kill the zombies and then leave. And then the ideal, as they're driving away, with whoever survived is like on the radio saying everything's fine now, it's all being contained, even though I've been listening to the whole movie. I'm like, yeah, they were talking on the radio how none of it's like it's all safe and everything. So it's like, I think that's clearly a lie, and then a zombie jumps up and scares you. It ain't great, but it is a movie. Yeah, it's fine for what it is. It's clearly a film that could have been a lot better. A lot better. It probably shouldn't have even been called Day of the Dead. That would have saved it like a lot of a percentage of a saving grace. Obviously there's a Bud character. They mentioned that he doesn't kill people because he's a vegetarian, so I thought that was hilarious. It's obviously meant to be a joke, but it still is a character thing. He's got the hots for the main character, so he doesn't want to attack her. And then he just gets killed by the other zombies because the doctor zombie is like, hey, he's clearly against us, we gotta kill him. So they just kill him, I guess? I don't know, they don't really... It's like the opposite of what happens in the other Romero film. So, yeah, I wouldn't pin it down as a movie that's worth watching, but if you have this Blu-ray set, it's only 80 minutes. What better do you have in life, honestly? It does have some special features, including the interview with the director, and even he was just saying, it's like, it was nice working with the actors. He just didn't seem to give a shit. You know, it clearly seems like he's at that point of his career where his name is like, hey, he did some Friday the 13th films in the 80s. Let's get him to do a zombie film with cartoon zombies that can jump on walls and stuff. It's very stupid, but I thought it was funny. I think it's one of those get drunk and watch it with friends kind of film, like so bad it's good. Yeah. As an overall, the films are interesting remakes. I think they all take the idea of the original and do something different with it, with the most dramatically different being Day of the Dead, by basically just not really doing anything the same of plot or character or anything except for taking Bud and taking the premise of military people and medical people. But the military people are the good guys, and there's medical people are the bad, well, actually are the bad guys. Literally, there might not be many in the film, but they're the reason it all started. Dawn of the Dead is the better of the remakes because it has a different style, different types of zombies. It has an upgrade to a lot of the stuff, you know, the action, generic blockbuster film with zombies. It's fine. It's worth watching. It's enjoyable. I liked it. Night of the Living Dead is clearly a film that would have benefited a lot from actually having a bigger budget and having more time to work on it, and if it did, it would have been fantastic. It is okay for what it is, but it is nothing to write home about. So, yeah. And, of course, Return of the Living Dead and all the Italian ones are pretty fun, if you've watched them. I've only seen those two that I mentioned, so, yeah. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching this Calm Relax Talk. If you haven't seen part 1, go check out part 1. I give my ranking out. I have no idea if people like my ranking for that video yet, because it has not been released as of filming. But yeah, so, that's all for now. Happy Halloween. I'm not wearing a Halloween shirt. I apologize. That's alright. See you next time. Adios.